You have no idea. Someone is loving you deeply in silence right now, and somehow you felt something when you heard that, didn't you? A pull, a quiet stirring, deep inside your spirit, that you can't explain. That's because this is not a coincidence. You didn't just randomly click on this message. God brought you here, out of all the voices, all the noise, all the distractions. You landed here for a reason, because something has been happening behind your back. You've been feeling it, haven't you? The strange energy, the sudden distance from people you once trusted, the quiet shifts in behavior that didn't make sense. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself, maybe you were overthinking, maybe it was nothing. But deep down, your spirit knew someone was working in the shadows. There were whispers you couldn't hear, conversations that never reached your ears, plans forming in silence, carefully designed to confuse you, to trap you, to make you question your own worth. This wasn't just misunderstanding. This wasn't just coincidence. This was intentional. You were being set up. And the painful part, it didn't come from strangers. It came from people you let close. People who smiled with you, who laughed with you, who knew your vulnerabilities. People you never imagined would play a role in your struggle. But here's what they didn't understand. You are not ordinary. You were never just another person passing through life unnoticed. There is something different about you. Something they couldn't fully grasp. A light that disturbed their darkness. A presence that exposed what they tried so hard to hide. And instead of facing their own truth, they chose to come after you. They thought they could manipulate the situation, twist narratives, turn people against you. They believed if they applied enough pressure, you would break, that you would fall apart, lose your way, and disappear quietly. But you didn't. Even in your weakest moments, you held on. Even when you felt alone, you kept moving forward. Even when your heart was heavy and your mind was exhausted, something inside you refused to give up. That wasn't by accident. That was God. Because while they were plotting in darkness, heaven was already making moves in the light. While they were crafting their plans, something far greater was unfolding beyond what they could see. Every lie, every betrayal, every hidden intention, it was all being recorded. Nothing slipped through unnoticed. You see, when you are chosen, the attacks don't come randomly. They come strategically. The enemy doesn't waste time on what has no purpose. And the intensity of what you faced, it says everything about who you are and where you're going. This is not just about betrayal. This is about exposure. Truth is rising. Masks are slipping, and the very traps they set are beginning to turn. What was meant to break you is shifting into something that will reveal everything they tried to hide. And you can feel it now, can't you? That tension in your spirit. It's not fear, it's anticipation, because something is changing. The same people who thought they had control are about to lose it. The same voices that tried to silence you will be forced into silence themselves. And the same situation that looked like your downfall is quietly becoming the foundation of your rise. You don't need to chase answers anymore. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. All you need to do is stay aligned, stay aware, and stay grounded in the truth that God sees everything. even what was hidden, even what was denied, even what was done when you weren't looking, because justice doesn't always come loudly. At first, sometimes it moves in silence, building, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And that moment is closer than you think. But what they didn't realize was that heaven was already watching everything. They smiled in your face, but behind your back they were planning your fall. And the hardest part about that truth is how real it feels to you right now, because you remember the moments, the conversations, the laughter that now feels different when you replay it in your mind. You trusted them. You let your guard down. You allowed them into your space, your thoughts, your life, never realizing that not everyone who stands close to you stands with you. Some people stand near you just to study you, to learn your patterns, your weaknesses, your fears. They watch how you move, how you react, what matters to you, and then quietly, carefully, they begin to use it against you. Not all at once, not in obvious ways, but in subtle, calculated steps designed to confuse you, isolate you, and slowly weaken your spirit. That's why it hurt the way it did, because it wasn't loud betrayal. It was silent, hidden behind smiles and kind words, hidden behind fake support and empty loyalty. They clapped for you in public, but questioned you in private. They encouraged you to your face, but planted seeds of doubt behind your back. And you felt it, that uneasy feeling you couldn't explain, that shift in energy when you walked into a room. The way conversations changed when you appeared. The way certain people suddenly grew distant or overly interested in things that didn't concern them. It wasn't your imagination, it was exposure. You were starting to see what had been hidden all along. And instead of accepting it right away, you tried to make sense of it. You tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. You told yourself, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe you misunderstood. But deep down, you knew. Because betrayal has a way of revealing itself to those who are spiritually aware. And you, whether you realize it or not, are not blind to these things. You are sensitive to shifts. You notice what others ignore, and that's exactly why you became a target. You weren't chosen randomly. There is something about your presence that disrupts falsehood. Something about your energy that makes people uncomfortable when they're not genuine. You carry a truth that doesn't need to speak loudly, to be felt. And for those who live behind masks, that's threatening. So instead of aligning with you, they tried to undermine you. Instead of celebrating you, they tried to compete with you in silence. Instead of being real with you, they chose manipulation. They twisted stories. They created narratives. They carefully positioned themselves to look innocent while quietly painting you in a different light. And all the while, you were just trying to move with honesty, with peace, with purpose. That's what makes it so heavy. You weren't playing the same game. You weren't thinking like them. You didn't expect deception, because your intentions were pure. And that's exactly what they counted on. They thought your kindness made you weak. They thought your silence meant you wouldn't notice. They thought your patience meant you wouldn't respond. But they misunderstood you, because being chosen doesn't mean being naive. It means being protected in ways you don't always see. While they were building their plans, Something greater was allowing the truth to unfold at the right time, piece by piece, moment by moment, until the confusion started turning into clarity, until the doubt started turning into awareness. And now you see differently. You're connecting the dots. You're remembering things that didn't make sense before. You're realizing that certain situations weren't accidents. They were setups, design moments meant to push you into reactions that could be used against you. But even then, you didn't break the way they expected. You didn't collapse under the pressure. You adapted. You grew quieter, but stronger, more observant, more aware, and that shift, that inner change they didn't plan for, is what's starting to disrupt everything they thought they had control over. Because when the chosen become aware, the entire game changes. Now their words don't hold the same power. Their actions don't go unnoticed. Their presence doesn't feel the same. And slowly, without you needing to force anything, things begin to turn. The truth has a way of rising. And what's been hidden for so long cannot stay hidden forever. They thought they were getting away with it, but something began to shift in the unseen. They didn't come against you by accident. They sensed something different about you, not something loud, not something you tried to prove, but something undeniable, a presence, a quiet strength, a kind of energy that doesn't beg for attention, yet somehow draws it anyway. And the truth is, people don't always understand what they feel when they encounter that kind of presence, but they react to it. Some feel inspired, some feel comforted, and others feel threatened, because light has a way of exposing what darkness wants to keep hidden. And you carry that light. It's in the way you think, the way you move, the way you choose peace when others expect chaos, the way you remain grounded even when life tries to shake you. There's a depth to you that can't be easily explained, and that alone sets you apart. But being different comes with a cost. You see, not everyone celebrates what they don't understand. Some people become uncomfortable around it. They start comparing themselves, questioning themselves, and instead of growing, they allow that discomfort to turn into something darker, jealousy. Not always the obvious kind, not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, hidden behind compliments that don't feel genuine, hidden behind support that feels forced, hidden behind small actions that don't quite match the words being spoken. It's spiritual jealousy. They're not just reacting to what you have. They're reacting to who you are, because there's something about your presence that reminds them of what they lack, not materially, but internally. Peace, clarity, purpose, alignment. You carry a sense of direction, even when you're still figuring things out. And that confuses people who feel lost within themselves. So instead of asking how you found your way, they try to pull you off yours. That's why the attacks felt so personal. That's why the betrayal cut so deep. Because it wasn't just about surface-level conflict. It was deeper than that. It was spiritual. A quiet clash between light and darkness playing out through everyday situations, conversations, and relationships. And you were right in the middle of it. But here's what you need to understand. Being targeted doesn't mean you're weak. It means you matter. It means there is something about your life, your purpose, your journey that holds weight. that carries impact, that has the potential to reach places and people you haven't even imagined yet. And the opposition you've faced. It's confirmation, because darkness doesn't resist what has no purpose. It doesn't try to tear down what isn't meant to rise. The pressure, the confusion, the unexpected resistance. It all points to one thing. You are not ordinary. But don't misunderstand that. This isn't about ego. This isn't about thinking you're better than anyone else. In fact, the very thing that makes you different is your humility, your ability to feel deeply, to care, to remain open-hearted in a world that often rewards the opposite. That's your strength. And yes, it makes you vulnerable at times. It means you feel things more intensely. It means betrayal hits harder. It means you sometimes question yourself when others act out of alignment. But it also means you're real. And in a world full of masks, that's rare. That's why your presence disrupts people who aren't living in truth. Because when someone authentic walks into a space, it naturally challenges anything fake. Not by force, not by confrontation, just by being. And not everyone is ready for that. So they project, they deflect, they create narratives that make them feel more comfortable. They try to reduce you to something smaller, something easier to understand, something less threatening. But no matter what they do, they can't change what you carry. They can't dim what was placed inside you. They can't stop what was meant for you. And even when it feels like things are moving slowly or not moving at all, there is something happening beyond what you can see. Pieces are being positioned, paths are being aligned, timing is being arranged with precision. You don't fully understand yet. You're not just going through random situations. You're being prepared. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, every experience that forced you to look deeper within yourself, it's all shaping you into someone who can carry what's coming next. And what's coming requires strength. It requires awareness. It requires exactly the version of you that's being built right now. So don't let the targeting confuse you. Don't let the resistance make you question your worth. If anything, let it remind you. You were seen long before they noticed you. You were chosen long before they came against you. And nothing they've done has the power to override what's already been set in motion. And while they were plotting against you, a higher power was preparing something they could never stop. What's happening now is not revenge, it's divine justice. And there's a difference, a powerful, undeniable difference. Revenge is driven by emotion, by pain, by the human desire to make things even. But divine justice moves with precision. It doesn't rush. It doesn't react out of anger. It responds with truth, with timing, and with authority far beyond anything we could ever control, because God sees everything, not just the actions people try to hide, but the intentions behind them, the whispers spoken in secret, the plans made in darkness, the moments when they thought no one was watching. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to bring you down. It was all seen, not one detail was missed. And while you were trying to process the hurt, while you were questioning why this was happening, heaven was already taking account. That's why you felt that inner restraint, that quiet voice, telling you not to react the way you wanted to, not to lash out, not to expose everything all at once. There were moments you could have defended yourself, moments you could have fought back, moments you could have said things that would have shaken everything. But you didn't, and maybe at the time, it felt like weakness. Maybe it felt like you were letting them get away with it. But you weren't. You were being positioned, because when God steps in, He doesn't need your help to bring justice. In fact, sometimes your silence becomes the very thing that allows truth to rise without interference. Sometimes stepping back is what creates space for everything hidden to come into the light. And now, something is shifting. You may not see it fully yet, but you can feel it. The energy is different. The same people who once seemed so confident, so sure of their control, are starting to lose that certainty. Things aren't aligning the way they planned. Situations are unfolding in ways they didn't expect, because consequences are real, not in a random or chaotic way, but in a divine order. What people put out, especially when it's intentional harm, has a way of returning, not because you wished it, not because you forced it, but because there is a higher standard of balance that cannot be broken. Call it sowing and reaping, call it accountability, call it justice. Whatever name you give it, it's happening. And the most powerful part, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to chase closure. You don't have to prove your innocence. You don't have to fight battles that were never yours to carry in the first place. Because the truth doesn't need defense when God is involved. What's done in darkness will come to light, not on your timeline, but at the exact moment it needs to. And when it does, it won't be partial. It won't be unclear. It will be undeniable. That's why you're being asked to stay still, to stay grounded, to resist the urge to interfere with what's already in motion. Because if you step in too soon, you might interrupt the very process that's meant to reveal everything. And deep down, you know this. That's why, despite everything, you haven't lost yourself. You haven't become bitter. You haven't turned into the kind of person who hurt you. You felt the anger, yes. You felt the disappointment. But something within you refused to let that become your identity. That's not accidental, that's alignment. Because justice isn't just about what happens to them. It's also about what happens within you. The peace you're beginning to feel again. The clarity that's returning. The strength that's building quietly without needing validation. You're not the same person you were when this started. You're stronger now, wiser, more aware, and that transformation, it's part of the justice too. Because while they were trying to break you, you were being rebuilt into something unshakable. And now, as things begin to unfold, as truths start to surface, as roles begin to reverse, in ways no one could have predicted, you're going to understand why everything had to happen the way it did. Not for your destruction, but for revelation, for alignment, for purpose. So, don't rush the process. Don't let impatience pull you out of position. What's coming doesn't need your force. It only needs your trust. Because this was never about revenge. It was always about something higher, something greater, something inevitable. The same trap they set for you is about to close on them. You survived what was meant to destroy you, and that changed everything. Take a moment and really let that sink in. Because there was a time when it didn't feel like you would make it through. There were nights when your thoughts were heavy, when your heart felt overwhelmed, when the weight of betrayal pressed down on you in ways no one else could see. You smiled on the outside, but inside, you were trying to understand how something so painful could come from people you once trusted. And yet, you're still here, not the same, not untouched, but still standing. That alone is proof of something greater over your life. Because what you went through wasn't small. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something everyone could carry and come out of with their spirit intact. But you did. Even when you felt like breaking, you didn't completely fall apart. Even when you questioned everything, you didn't lose yourself entirely. That wasn't luck. That was protection. There was a covering over you the entire time, even in moments where it felt like everything was slipping out of control. Something was holding you together. Something was keeping you from going too far into the darkness. Something was guiding you quietly, step by step, even when you couldn't see the full path ahead. And now you're beginning to realize you weren't just surviving. You were being strengthened. Every tear, every moment of confusion, every situation that forced you to stand alone, it was all building something inside you that couldn't have been developed any other way. A deeper awareness, a stronger sense of self, a connection to God that is no longer based on comfort, but on experience. You know now what it feels like to be carried, when you had no strength left. And that changes you, because once you've seen that kind of protection, once you've felt that kind of presence in your lowest moments, you don't move the same anymore. You don't fear the same way. You don't depend on people the same way. You become anchored, and with that anchoring comes elevation. Things are about to shift in your favor, not in a loud, dramatic way, at first, but in quiet, undeniable ways. Doors that once felt closed will begin to open. Opportunities that didn't exist before will start appearing. Connections will align differently, and most importantly, your peace will return in a way that feels deeper and more stable than anything you've experienced before. That's not random. That's favor. Because when you stay aligned through hardship, when you choose not to become bitter, when you allow yourself to grow instead of breaking, there is a reward that comes with that. Not always immediately, not always in the way you expect, but it comes, and it's lasting. You're stepping into a season where you won't have to force things anymore, where what belongs to you will recognize you, where the right people won't need convincing, where your presence will be valued, not tolerated. But with that elevation comes a reminder. Stay grounded, stay aware, stay connected to the one who brought you through it all. Because the same strength that carried you then is the same strength that will sustain you as you rise. And if this message resonates with your spirit, if you can feel deep down that this is speaking directly to your journey, take a moment and acknowledge it. Comment Amen as a declaration, not for anyone else, but for yourself. A sign that you recognize what you've been through and what you're stepping into. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more messages like this. Because this isn't the end of your story. This is just the moment where things begin to make sense. You didn't go through all of that for nothing. You didn't endure all that pain just to stay in the same place. You were being prepared for something greater. Something that requires the strength you now carry. Something that requires the wisdom you've gained. Something that requires the version of you that refused to give up. So walk forward with that knowing. Not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence, not in fear, but in faith, because you are protected, you are guided, and you are walking into a future that no betrayal, no manipulation, no hidden enemy could ever take away from you. What was meant to break you became the reason you were chosen.